So Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living, what, 2,500 years ago? And all philosophy since has really been commentary on that basic concept. Vegetarianism challenges us to lead an examined life. It challenges us to ask how meat is made and where our food comes from. So for me personally, growing up in Minnesota and Oklahoma, the idea of not eating meat, when it was first presented to me, was very much like the idea of not breathing oxygen. For people who played football in Oklahoma, the food groups really were McDonald's and Dairy Queen, and that was pretty much how we subsisted. And when I started thinking about how meat is made and what the practical ramifications were of getting meat to our table, I learned about the fact, by reading Diet for a Small Planet, that eating meat is vastly inefficient and polluting. That alone, for somebody who seeks to lead an ethical life, would be cause to adopt a vegetarian diet. It also steals food out of the mouths of the global poor. And finally, it supports gratuitous cruelty to animals that is completely unnecessary. For each of those reasons independently, I contend that people who strive to lead an ethical life, and certainly Mormons first and foremost among those persons, should not be eating meat. According to the Bible, we are simply voyagers on the earth. The earth belongs to God, and our challenge is to be good stewards of the earth. Leviticus puts it this way: the land shall not be sold forever, for the land is God's, and human beings are strangers and sojourners with God. Further on in Leviticus, the idea of the Sabbath year and the Jubilee year are set out. In the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest on the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You should neither sow the field nor prune the vineyard. That which grows of its own accord of thy harvest you shall not reap, neither gather the grapes of the vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the Lord. Throughout the Hebrew Scriptures especially, there is this idea that human beings are supposed to be stewards of the earth. What we are doing with the earth by raising animals for food is the diametrical opposite of that. So I'll put it a bit intuitively. I weigh about 185 pounds. If I do nothing but lay in bed watching Jerry Springer reruns, I'm going to burn about 2,000 calories a day. So I'm Jerry, and then it ticks up just a little bit if I get very excited. The same sort of relationship exists for animals, so that it takes about 20 calories in the form of corn or wheat or soy or alfalfa fed to a farmed animal to get 1 calorie back out in the form of meat. And is there anybody here who would go to your refrigerator, take out 19 plates of pasta and just dump them in the trash? Every once in a while somebody will raise their hand for that. But no, it's environmentally irresponsible, and not just environmentally irresponsible, but it violates the systems of ethics of really any religion, and certainly of LDS, that we would waste food unnecessarily, and yet that's the relationship we enter into every time we choose to eat meat. We are literally paying somebody to waste vast quantities of food. That alone would be cause to hold against the resolution to hold that ethical BYU students should be vegetarians. This is the resource consumption chart that basically is an elaboration on the point that I just made. It takes 20 more times as many calories from fossil fuels to get a calorie from meat as to get a calorie from plant foods, 14 times as much water, and 25 times as much land. It is extraordinarily wasteful. And it's not just wasteful, but it's literally stealing food out of the mouths of the global poor. The most recent United Nations statistic is that 987 million people are living in what the UN calls nutritional deficit. It's a euphemism. 987 million people are starving to death right now. There was a big controversy, well, there is a big controversy about biofuels that I'm sure everybody here is familiar with. About 100 million metric tons of corn and grain is turned into biofuels every year. The UN Special Envoy on Food called it a human rights crime that 100 million metric tons of corn and wheat would be turned into fuel, even as 987 million people are starving. And yet the same UN report found that 758 million metric tons are turned into feed for farmed animals. And that doesn't even include the 95% of the global soy crop, about 220 million metric tons of soy, that is also turned into farmed animal feed to feed chickens and pigs and other farmed animals. Biofuels alone have driven up the price of food for people who are starving by about 70%. The meat industry has driven it, is causing those food prices to be about 10 times that. We would be able to feed an awful lot of people if we weren't funneling crops through animals. So Jesus says, who is my neighbor? Well, the person in the city asks, who is my neighbor, Lord? And Jesus basically says, everybody is your neighbor. We have a moral obligation as Christians, and certainly there is a moral obligation in LDS, that we look out for the global poor. If we can choose between something that adds to their misery and causes more people to starve and something that doesn't, we choose the thing that doesn't. That alone would be cause for adopting a vegetarian diet. This is a banner that Greenpeace unveiled in the Amazon rainforest, probably the world's largest banner. It says KFC Amazon criminal, because the Amazon rainforest is being shot down to grow soy to feed the farmed animals. And then finally, I want to talk about the animal issue. I'm going to show a couple minutes of a video narrated by Alec Baldwin called Meet Your Meat. This is standard agricultural practice. This is how more than 99% of farmed animals in this country are treated. The laws that protect dogs and cats explicitly exempt farmed animals, so that everything that happens to chickens and pigs and other farmed animals would warrant felony cruelty to animals charges if dogs or cats were treated similarly.
To see is beyond your worst nightmares. But for animals raised on modern intensive production farms and killed in slaughterhouses, it is cold, inescapable reality. Once you see for yourself the routine cruelty involved in raising animals for food, you'll understand why millions of compassionate people have decided to leave meat off their plates for good. Chickens are probably the most abused animals on the face of the planet. They are crammed into filthy sheds by the tens of thousands, immersed in their own excrement among the corpses of other birds who died of heart attacks or stress. Some even die of starvation brought on by becoming crippled from growing so large, so fast, that their legs can't withstand the weight, which makes them unable to reach food. After being genetically manipulated and fed antibiotics to promote unnaturally rapid growth, their hearts, lungs, and legs often break down under the added weight. Heart attacks and crippling leg deformities are far too common.
PETA is anti-copyright, and I would challenge anybody who is interested to watch that entire video. It is really quite arresting. In the limited time that we have, I just want to make the point that all ethical paradigms, all ethical systems, and certainly for me as a Roman Catholic, the idea of choosing, we have a choice between doing something that adds to the level of misery in the world and something that adds to the level of mercy in the world. Every single time, ethical people choose mercy. If we can add to the level of cruelty in the world or the level of compassion in the world, every single time, ethical people choose compassion. Joseph F. Smith put it this way. He said, in relation to shedding blood and to the destruction of life, it is not only wicked to destroy them, it is abominable, in my opinion. I think that this principle should extend not only to the bird life, but to the life of all animals. And Hiram M. Smith said, to kill when not necessary is a sin akin to murder. As Paul McCartney says, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everybody would be a vegetarian. The great philosopher Sir Paul McCartney, he said, it's staggering when you think about it. Vegetarianism takes care of so many things in one shot: ecology, famine, cruelty. This other guy on the right is just, he's not the Socrates, but his name is, in fact, Socrates. I thought it was a little more appealing than the stone Socrates you generally get from Google Images. In conclusion, if you care about and recognize an ethical imperative of not wasting resources, if you're opposed to global poverty and don't want to contribute to it, and if you want to make choices that are in favor of compassion for animals rather than cruelty to animals, for any of these reasons, and certainly for all three of these reasons, BYU students should be vegetarians. Thank you.